In ancient India, when the Buddhists and Jains professed self-restraint and self-control, when some of the Vedic schools emphasized the importance of rituals, and when almost every Indian school advocated good karma, one philosopher mocked and ridiculed them all, called them fools, and questioned their beliefs with arguments that were difficult to refute. This was Charvak, who proclaimed,
"While this life is with you, fill it with joy, because one day everyone's gonna die. Once this body is burned, how will it ever again return? Fools are those who avoid pleasure because it is followed by pain. Will you for having to give to beggars, not sow grains? There is no God, no heaven, no action good, and no other a sin. These are all constructs of these men on the stupidity of the simpleton whose livelihood depends."
Although Charvak rejected all the other philosophies, his philosophy was revered by many other philosophers. When Adi Shankaracharya, Madhavacharya, and the former President of India, Dr. S. Radhakrishnan, took up the task of compiling the philosophies of India, they made sure that Charvak philosophy was a part of it. So who was this Charvak, and what was his philosophy? How did it survive for over 2000 years at a time when the belief systems of India contrasted sharply with his teachings? Let us find out. The fundamental proposition on which the philosophy of Charvak is based is that if one cannot experience something by oneself with one's own senses, it is not real. And hence, he declares that God, soul, heaven, afterlife, none of these can be believed in, because no one has seen, heard, or touched any of them. No one has had a first-hand experience of their existence. Hearing this, a student of Samkhya may counter, then what about the sense of self? Every one of us can feel the existence of our own individual selves. Even if we shut our eyes and ears, we still are aware that we exist. We don't need the help of any worldly experience to know that. The sense of one's own existence is the most natural and irrefutable experience that we all have. Would Charvak refuse the existence of self-consciousness too? The Samkhya school terms this self-consciousness as soul. They point out that such a consciousness, that is soul, is not found in any physical object, nor does it behave like one. Then how can a soul be made up of physical particles? Consciousness or soul must be something different, something supernatural, non-material, something not belonging to the realm of physics. Although Charvak admits the existence of consciousness, he doubts if it is different from physical objects. So it would be presumptuous to jump to the conclusion that something conscious, something that can think, cannot arise from non-living, non-conscious physical elements. Take wine, for example. The grapes that it is made from are naturally non-intoxicant. But when grapes are allowed to ferment, exhilarating wine is produced. So even though grapes and wine are very different things, one leads to the creation of the other. Consciousness too, in a similar manner, can arise from the human body made up of physical elements. With similar arguments, Charvak refuses Nyaya philosophers' reasoning behind the existence of God. The Nyayikas state that in this world every effect has a cause. If we trace the existence of things to their causes and keep doing that recursively, we will ultimately reach that one ultimate cause from which everything has directly or indirectly originated. This ultimate cause is the creator of the universe, God. But Charvak laughs it off, stating that a thing needs a creator only if that creation has an intended purpose. An earthen jar requires a potter to make it from clay because the jar is needed for storing water. But a shapeless chunk of clay that forms in the pool of mud on its own needs no creator because it has no specific purpose. Likewise, when physical elements interacted randomly according to the laws of nature, the universe was created all by itself. We and this world are products of accidents, and hence, there is no necessity of God for our being. Now the negation of God raises eyebrows of the Mimamsikas, who believe that by worshipping the gods using methods prescribed in the Vedas, one can please them and get one's desires granted. Charvak strikes right back at them, stating that such rites and rituals are mere inventions of the priests who loot the simpleton by coaxing, spooking, and deceiving them into performing them. He says that if, for example, through the ritual of Shraddha that is performed to pay homage to one's ancestors, a departed soul can be fed by offering food into a sacred fire, then why burden a traveler with food for the way? Even he can be fed by someone else offering food for him into a fire during his lunchtime, right? Similarly, he questions the ritual of animal sacrifice too. It was believed that sacrificed animals always reached the heavens for the consumption of gods and departed ancestors. Now, if that were true, then why not sacrifice humans as well? Certainly, everyone wants to go to heaven, and a sacrifice can surely help one secure a place in there. So far, it seems that only the Buddhist philosophers, who themselves don't agree with the Vedas or believe in the existence of God or soul, have been spared by Charvak. But then, Charvak discards their fundamental belief of rebirth and invalidates their teaching of minimizing suffering in human life. Buddhist monks believe that in life, pleasure is followed by pain sooner or later, and by training the mind to detach from pleasure, one can reduce the suffering from pain. Learn to have no expectations of pleasure, and suffering will not follow. Charvak does agree that every joy brings sorrow along, but he sees no point in containing one's desires for that reason. Would you reject the corn because of its husk? He asks. Would you cease to grow crops because there are birds and animals to destroy them? Then why avoid pleasure for the fear of accompanying pain? On the contrary, Charvak says that pleasure arising through the senses is the only good thing we can obtain in this life. A Charvak way is to not fear pain and enjoy as much pleasure as we can, even if it takes borrowing from others and living in debt. Charvak thus debated with every other philosopher around him purely on logical reasoning. It would not be surprising if the modern world agrees with Charvak, since his purely logical analysis of the material world is much like the scientific study of the physical universe. Modern scientific temperament also shares Charvak's skepticism towards supernatural concepts like the soul, God, and the afterlife. Moreover, today's consumerism syncs well with Charvak's pursuit of maximum pleasures. However, Charvak's philosophy, though abundant with valid logical arguments, lacks morality, empathy, and ethics, and doesn't offer a purpose in life. One might find intellectual richness in it, but miss the emotional and spiritual depth. And perhaps for this reason, the Charvak philosophy did not find as many admirers in its long history as did the other Indian philosophies. Charvak's logical rebuttals compelled other philosophers to offer logical counterarguments. As Dr. S. Radhakrishnan puts it, Charvak's skepticism and debates might have kept the Indian mindset from becoming dogmatic and authoritative. Charvak's debates best illustrate the Indian philosophical tradition of healthy discussions. It is remarkable that although Charvak defied and even mocked other philosophies, all of his concepts and arguments were documented by these very competing schools of thought. At Glimpses Studio, we shall be looking at the various schools of thought mentioned in this video as well as the others in our subsequent videos. So stay subscribed and we shall meet you again with another philosopher. Till then, like, comment, share, subscribe, and if possible, fund our channel for us to keep researching, scripting, and animating such fascinating videos. Namaste.